What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the show Recap with Mo. Well, we're getting ready to get into another episode breakdown of the Miss Pat Show. But before we get into this thing, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss shit that's going down. So the episode we're getting ready to look at is Season 3, Episode number 2, titled Pat on Tour. Now, the synopsis for this episode states when Miss Pat and Denise join comic Tony Free's tour, Pat realizes it's true that people should never meet their heroes. When Terry has to work the graveyard shift, the kids throw a huge house party that goes awry. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this thing. So we open this episode right here with Terry opening a box that is actually for Pat. Now, Pat receives a Rolex from the comedian Tony Free. Now, Tony just so happens to be her hero, one of her idols, somebody that she grew up listening to, that she absolutely adores, and she's actually going on tour with him to open for him. And within that box, along with the Rolex, he also included some items for the kids, like merchandise, like the merch, t-shirts and things like that. And Junebug conveyed to Pat and the rest of them in the room that, hey man, these shirts were $50. And Denise, hearing all of this, is like, okay, shit, if he can sell it for $50, you can definitely sell your own merchandise for $20 to $25 just to get you a little extra income on the side. So anyhow, she was like, yeah, and will you promote me from your assistant to, actually becoming your manager? And she was like, but you don't work for me. Like, you ain't got no job for me. And she's like, look, how much does a manager make? 20%? Pat is like, hell to the no, 10%. So Denise is like, well, deal. And Denise is pretty much giving herself a job. She done fandangled this whole thing. Pat never saw it coming. She never saw it coming. She was good, bro. So anyhow, going on from there, the next thing we see later on that night is Terry actually getting ready to leave for work. He actually has to work the graveyard shift. But before he leaves the room, he informs all the kids that Janelle is in charge because she's safe. She's boring, in other words, right? So Janelle decides that she's more mature, and Junebug and I believe Brandon are sitting in the midst of all of this. And Junebug is like, yeah, you're safe. And she was like, why are you saying I'm safe? I'm not safe. I'm a fun person. And Junebug is like, okay, well, prove it. And she was like, okay, so we'll have a house party. And he was like, oh, for real? We're going to have a house party? Say it again. So she says, we're going to have a house party. So she's playing at this house party, y'all. She's playing a documentary at the house party. People are sitting down playing board games. They're playing Jenga. They playing crossword puzzles, all types of things. And this is her, in her mind, this is a house party. So when Junebug comes downstairs, he was like, hold on, what? He said, Janelle. She was like, yeah. He was like, where's the party? She was like, this is it. Like, I can't have any music on because we're trying to watch the documentary. And he was like, come on, man. He said, you need some music. And while he's saying all of that, Ashley walks in with Brandon. And he was like, well, what time does the party start? She was like, you guys are killing me right now. Like, this is the party. They was like, look, this is not a party that we grew up going to. Like, you need to get some music, get some drinks or whatnot. So anyhow, long story short, they have a house party. Right? So going on from there, we head back over to the hotel where we see Pat and Denise living it up. They sitting pretty in this hotel room. It's pretty swank. Denise is off in that thing like, I wish I had I wish I had a man off in this piece. And Pat is like, okay, yeah, we good. Like, we real good. And she's enjoying herself. Denise is enjoying herself. And they hear a loud-ass knock at the door. So we was like, darn, that sounds like the po-po, right? So they was like, well, who is it? It just so happens to be Tony Free. Now, Tony Free is like, hey, y'all gonna have to get up out of here. They was like, look, we just got off into the hotel room. He was like, well, my cousins just got in from out of town, and I promised them a room, so y'all gotta go. Well, it just so happens that these cousins that he's talking about just so happens to be two freaks. And they talking about, are the hoes up out of the room yet? And they did not use that word. So they popping pills. They got him ready. He's talking about, y'all can be out of here in 30 minutes. And when she popped that pill in his mouth, he was like, no, make that 20. I don't know how long the pill takes to kick in, but I guess it's 20 minutes, all right? So, so anyhow, back at the crib now, they have a whole party going on at the Carson house. And they got people all over the place, cups all over the place. And of course, just like everybody knows, when you have these types of events, people are all over the house, okay? So Junebug comes downstairs. He alerts them that, Dad got off early. They was like, okay, well, just let us know when he shows up. It was like, oh, well, he's here. It was like, right now? Yeah, he's here right now. So anyhow, they said, okay, the police is here. Nobody moves. And they're like, oh, that only works for black people. And I said, shit. So they was like, Billy Irish is outside or something like that. And everybody got up and left. And I was like, what the hell? Who in the hell is that? So anyhow, Terry comes in after they've cleaned up. They're rushing around the house, all four of them, trying to put stuff, hide everything, put it up. And they're out of breath when Terry comes in. So Terry's like, okay, y'all good? Like, what's going on right now? And they was like, oh, man, we were just out of breath watching this movie that we're watching. He was like, really? He was like, what movie y'all watching? And they said 4 different movies. Like, y'all didn't take the time to get your story straight, nothing. Like, we just gonna say all different movies, right? So he was like, something ain't right about this picture. And I was like, right, Terry, something is not right. So he was like, y'all gonna tell me. And they was like, nah, man, we just good. We just watching this movie. So anyhow, he's too tired, obviously, to go through it. So he goes on upstairs. When he gets upstairs, though, he was like, oh, y'all kids done effed up. Like, y'all done effed up. They was like, oh, hell, like, what in the world did we do? The Rolex that she just received from Tony Free is gone. It was in the room. It's gone. So when he comes downstairs, he's asking them, like, what happened to the Rolex? They're like, I don't know. Brandon is like, oh, man, I got it downstairs. I was actually showing it to one of my friends, but I'll bring it up tomorrow. Terry's like, okay, well, you better do it tomorrow. So when Terry goes back up the steps, Janela's like, okay, Brandon, do you really actually have that watch downstairs? He was like, oh, no. And he says it nervously, like, and they all start to freak out. Because they already know somebody in that house that does not live there has taken that watch. Who in the hell knows what's going on with it? It's gone, though. So anyhow, they bring 2 individuals by the name of Tanner. So I'm going to just call them the Tanners. You got Black Tanner and you got White Tanner. So they're both sitting on the couch and they decided to interrogate them. Like, from the footage that we have, you are the last 2 people. You are actually the only 2 people that actually went upstairs, went to that area of the house. So we need to know, what did you do with our mom's watch? Well, White Tanner is like, I don't even know. I was up there, but I really don't want to say why I was up there. They was like, no, you need to tell us what you were doing up there. And he was like, well, I was actually meeting a young lady up there, and she told me she was going to do something a little strange for a little piece of change, if you understand what I'm saying. And it was like, oh, for real. Now, Brandon is a little more enthused about what he's talking about, what he's bringing right now. So he was like, so how was it? And they was like, look, get up out that man's business. Right? So, it just so happens to be that the Black Tanner was the one that actually took the watch. And they was like, okay, so what did you do with the watch? He said, oh, I pawned it. It was like, oh, bro, like, for real? It was like, yeah, I got $1,500 for it. It was like $1,500. They said that watch was worth a whole lot more than $1,500. And the Black Tanner is like, why would the pawn shop lie about, how much it was worth? Like, fool, like, they not going to give you exactly what they're going to sell it for. They're going to sell it for a profit. And that's what I'm talking about. A dumb fool doesn't need to be a thief at all. But anyhow, going back over to the hotel, we're now seeing Pat and Denise getting their merch together on the table when Tony Free comes out and he wants to speak directly to Denise. So he pulls Denise to the side and he's like, look, Denise, I'm going to just be straightforward. I need your assistance with something. She was like, okay, what do you need? He was like, I need you to, act as my wife. And I need you to go in and I need you to get these girls up out of this room because they running my credit card through the hole. Like, I mean, they charging for facials, they got manicures, they got this, they getting all the top bottles and all this stuff. And he says, I need you to get rid of them. She was like, okay. She was like, well, in the beginning of the show, and I think I forgot to talk about this, he was talking about any merchandise that was sold from her table, he got 20% of it, 20% of the profit. They didn't agree with that. So in her negotiations, she stated, okay, if I do this for you, first and foremost, we're getting our room back, right? He was like, yeah, we can do that. She was like, okay. And then that 20% you were receiving from our table, that got to go away. He was like, for real? She was like, yeah, they got to go. So anyhow, enough said, done deal. She does what she needs to do to get the women up out of there. She heads to the room, acts a little crazy with them, and they run up out. While they're there, Pat is getting all that stuff cleaned up out of there, and Pat and Denise are excited about, getting their room back. So they hear another knock on the door. So they head over to the door, and it just so happens to be Selena Williams. All right? Is that her name? Selena Jackson. One of them. Who's the woman that sings? I think her name is Selena. I think it is. Selena Jackson. Shit, I don't know. I can't even remember. Anyhow, I think her name is Selena. So she just so happens to be Tony Free's wife in this show. So she comes in with a baseball bat, slamming stuff, tearing up pillows. And she's like, yeah, I had a private investigator tell me that Tony Free had a room right next to him with two women in it, and they were doing what they were doing. And she was like, no, that's not us. You know what I'm saying? That may have been the other women, but that's not us. Long story short, Tony comes in, takes the bat from him, and they, of course, have to do some more negotiations because at this point, his wife is now trying to hear directly from the ladies' mouths, like, what's been going down. And she was like, so did y'all see anybody up here? And she was like, okay, well, Denise is like, okay, I'm gonna do something that has always been my safeguard. I ain't seen nothing. And she walks off. All right? I ain't seen it. I don't even know what you're talking about right now. I ain't seen it. So going on from there, we head over here to Pat. Now, Pat is like, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tell the truth. Tony, knowing that she's getting ready to say something out the way, he was like, oh, did I tell you that Pat is going to be on my radio every day of the week, Monday through Friday? And she was like, yeah, he going to pay me $500 a day for it too. And it was like, what? And she was like, Denise was like, yeah. And he offered to pay me $250 a day. And it was like, man, what? And he called out her name, of course. But he was like, oh, yeah. They being for real. Because he don't want to mess up what he got with his wife. But this is my thing, bro. If you don't want no problems right now, what you got going on is costing you a whole lot of damn money to get your freak on. Like when you could just get your freak on with your wife. Or you could be honest with your wife and say, hey, we need to have an open marriage because I still want to get my freak on the outside. Now, I don't know how many women would be willing to do that right now. Well, I take that back. Because I know there are several women out there that would love to have an open relationship. So I ain't even going to say that. I'm not going to say it. But anyhow, headed back over to the Carson house. So the father, Terry, has decided to go and get the watch. The kids actually confessed about the situation. He was pissed off about it, but at the same time, he was like, I once was a child. I know how it goes. But he said the number one thing about having a house party is you don't get caught. But you sitting up here snitching on yourself. But unfortunately, Janelle had to, she pretty much had to snitch on herself because of what was taken from the premises. Long story short, they actually go and get the watch back. I think the pawn shop wanted $5,000 for it, even though old boy got $1,500 from it, which is ludicrous, right? And when they sit down on the couch, everybody's happy that they got the Rolex back. Pat calls and he was like, okay, I'm gonna put you on speakerphone. What's good, boo? So when she gets on the phone, she was like, look, I want you to get rid of that watch for me. He was like, yeah, we're looking at the watch right now, just enjoying it. You want me to get it polished? She was like, no, I want you to pawn it. Everybody in the room was like, what the hell? Like, we just spent money to get it from the pawn shop. No, I want you to take it back to the pawn shop because this dude over here ain't what he say he is. So that's how she found out that her hero, her idol, the comic king, wasn't the dude that she thought he was. So anyhow, that's pretty much the end of this recap for this episode number 2 of season 3 for the Miss Pat Show. I hope that you guys have enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys soon, man. Remember, tonight is the Oval, so get ready for that. Tomorrow is Sisters. And then actually, I got the Kingdom business coming up as well. So brother is working, man. I'm just trying to get all of these videos edited and pushed out to y'all as quickly as possible. With that being said, I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.